Welcome to another episode. This is episode not 10. I don't remember what episode it is now. Probably 12? Maybe 12?
Something like that.
Yeah. I should probably look that up before we start the show so I could say welcome to the right episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
might be good.
as always, I'm Brett and
And I'm Travers.
yeah, we believe it or not, we
Yeah.
rehearse all of
Here we
this
are.
before. Yeah, we definitely it's well scripted. Okay, so I'm
Scripted.
gonna
100%.
start with some Nicolas Cage trivia. And we were talking about this in the car today.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm putting you on the spot, as I always do every week. Nicolas Cage made a movie where he is like in an old abandoned restaurant with animatronic animals. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, that's Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland. That's what it is. Okay. Now, the question that we were discussing, because, it's
Okay.
inquiring minds want to know, is throughout the movie, he would
Mhm.
always drink those crazy, like, grape flavored
It's okay.
energy drinks or something like that. Do you recall that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so here's the question. Is he drinking energy drinks for any apparent reason? We couldn't remember when we were talking about it, and we're like, was it product placement? Nobody could remember. And I kind of think it was just this weird thing that he did.
I read it as like he's a main character in a video game or something. It's a power up or
It's his
his
power up. Yeah.
or maybe he's a
Okay.
cyborg or something strange like that.
Yeah,
Because we don't know. We don't get that info.
Yeah. So oddly enough, my nephew's visiting this week, and we watched
yeah.
a movie which you could put on your list, your weekly movie list. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's,
Okay. Yep.
which he told me is actually based off of like a jump scare video game or something that was popular
Yep.
for a while.
There's a whole franchise.
Yeah. And neither him or I were really super familiar with it, but it basically looked like, what did you call the Nick Cage movie? I already forget.
Willy's Wonderland. Yeah.
It's almost the exact same thing. So my comment to him was, well, did you play the game enough to tell me if the energy drink thing was like some sort of weird power up? But he couldn't remember either. So I was like, I'm going to ask Travers.
So some interesting trivia about that. I think Willy's Wonderland went into production before Five Nights at Freddy's was released or started development. So it was in development for a long time, and it's kind of an independent emergence of this idea of animatronics killing people at essentially a Chuck E. Cheese, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the
So,
theme of it, right? Is like, kids kind of eatery, video gamey kind of place. And
yeah.
yeah, well,
So it's kind of
we muddled through Five Nights at Freddy's. It took us a couple attempts to finish
couple
it.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like a sit down and watch everything. But yeah, we made it through, and the whole thing, I'm like, man, this is just a Cage movie. It's the same thing, right? So anyway, so that's my put you on the spot on movie trivia stuff for the session. And then there was one other thing that I thought I would bring up, which I don't recall now, as kind of like something stupid
good.
we could talk about. So if it pops back in my head, we'll just change midstream here and talk
right
about
into it,
whatever
yeah.
that was. Yeah. So with that in mind, let me see if I can switch this.
That
And
always
yeah, it'll
great
like,
radio.
yeah, it's great listening. We'll be talking about CloudFormation, and all of a sudden it'll just pop back into my head, right? All right. So CloudFormation, two interesting updates from,
Yes.
well, actually, I was going to say from the week, but I'm looking at the date here. I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. But these actually could be spread across 2 weeks because we didn't do this last week because I was running a training session. So yeah,
Right.
This might be, let's say, AWS updates from the last week or two. This one was really good. Interesting. Lots of chatter about it. So you're able to get 40% faster stack creation with CloudFormation now because they've introduced a new CloudFormation event. So before, when you were creating a stack, you had one of two states. You had the create in progress and create complete. And until that create complete event occurred, you couldn't continue on, right? And what they're saying now is if you have it in a single stack, they give you an example here, right? Like resource A and resource B. And in our stack, resource B, resource bay, I don't know what that is. Resource B depends on resource A. what can happen now is that CloudFormation will start deploying resource B as soon as it gets this new event
Right.
called creation configuration complete.
Yeah, it's a huge speed up. I've been playing with it today, deploying CloudFormation. It feels a lot snappier, and it's
Yeah.
just because those resources get the chance to start creation without waiting on those other dependencies, right? So it feels really good, and this is a great change in my book. Thumbs up for sure. This is awesome.
Yeah. So the other infrastructure as code tool that we won't mention here is often like, oh, I use this because CloudFormation is slow. And I commented
Yeah.
to you when I first saw this is, oh, it'll be interesting to see how this changes that discussion. Not that, you should change just because this is here, right? Why would you change just for the sake of
Right.
changing? But, it's an interesting, to me, this seems long overdue, but I can imagine that the engineering effort behind the scenes that we don't know about could be rather significant to get something
Oh
like
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably hugely intensive on the development side. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to get anything close to just API deployments, which is what Terraform uses, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, any speed improvement is excellent.
It's
I
good.
think.
Yeah. So, and you said you've been trying this today.
Yep.
You don't actually have to do anything, right? Like it's just
No,
this
no.
new event CloudFormation spits out and you go from there. You don't have to change anything.
Yeah, it's built in. I was deploying some VPCs earlier and client VPN setups,
Yeah.
and VPCs have a lot of dependent resources, right? So,
Yep.
um, yeah, it shoots through it faster than it normally would. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. Sorry, I gotta fix my glasses here at the same time. As I'm doing this, let's go here. 2 CloudFormation updates in the span of a week or two. I can't
yeah,
remember the last time this happened, to be honest. Yeah, it's obviously these things are being worked on. Probably same sort of idea. Takes a lot of effort to do this. This one here, for personally for me, is actually even more important than the other ones. I often used CloudFormation create stack deployments to wander off and do something else, like refill my coffee or something. So I wasn't
right,
that torn up about having to wait a little bit of time to get things done because it let me do I multitask. But
yeah,
what's great about this one is my biggest challenge in CloudFormation is spelling errors. So
mm,
what's fantastic about this one is that CloudFormation will now do checks, validation checks. And one of the things it does is it looks for invalid resource properties, unsupported names, right? Typos
great,
in those names. So you can see the example here. If you're going to deploy an S3 bucket and you accidentally misspell property names, which if you've watched our Twitch stream on Tuesday nights, you'll often watch me deploy something and then
mm,
go, oh, oops, it's not AE, it's EA. Oops, and we got to go back and do it again. So to have this kind of pre-flight check that would, check for those kinds of things before actually trying to deploy it. And the comment in here is, lets you, somewhere it says basically this idea of failing faster. So you're not going to wait for it to go through CloudFormation.
right,
Validates it prior to that and spits a message out up front.
perfect. If they can move more of those all that error checking to the front end validation side, like that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got 2 sort of, I always term these sort of quality of life type updates for CloudFormation. So less, I have to, I guess, be careful on how I want to say this, but with that new event, we're not maybe waiting quite as long on stack or resource dependencies within the same stack. And now with this one, if you're like me and are challenged when it comes to spelling, you can fail quicker. So 2 general quality of life things, both interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Here's another quality of life one, actually. And, I don't know. I think a lot of people would look at this and go, yeah, who cares? One of the comments I saw about this somewhere, I think it was on Twitter, was somebody said, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something like along the lines of, excuse me, it was something like, to be able to easily visualize resources in your cloud environment is always a nice benefit.
Oh
So
yeah,
very similar to what's existed in the VPC service for a long time, where you have these resource maps that help you visualize what it is that's in your VPC. You now have
it's a
the
great
same thing
tool.
in an ALB. So
Perfect.
yeah,
That
right.
is. Look forward to being able to check that quickly to get a view of what's going on there, because navigating the ALB menus can be a bit challenging sometimes. They can go pretty deep, clicking into listeners and rules and targets. So
Yeah,
there's
trying to
quite a
figure
few
that
clicks
all
there.
out, right? Yeah,
Yep.
I actually,
If
when
you
I
don't
saw
know.
this, I immediately jumped into one of accounts that we manage, and I'm thinking about that customer in particular because they have a lot of not complex rules, but they have a lot of rules on the listeners. And
Right.
I'm
Yep.
like, oh, I want to see what this actually looks like. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use this all the time, just because, even if you're the person who's deployed this resource, who has configured it, it's very easy to kind of forget what you had done, even just a couple days ago. So having that visual representation of it right in the dashboard, man, I don't see how that's a bad thing.
No, yeah, it's one of those kind of visual models that, or like configuration models that really lends itself well to that kind of flowchart representation, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, because like to
that's
your point, right? You've got the load balancer, listeners, rules,
yeah,
and then you've got to try to figure out a way to kind of visualize all that. You could always document that, which probably is still a good idea. But having this, if you're just kind of in the console wanting to look at something, being able to pull this up and see it very quickly is a super
great.
great little
Yeah.
feature. So there's that one, ALB. And here is EFS. This one, I'm going to let you kick us off because you mentioned this one and I forgot to add it. So what is this
Oh
all
yeah.
about?
So this one kind of caught my eye. It looks like they've enabled up to 20 gigabits per second of throughput on on EFS now, which I think is 2x from what it was. Uh,
2x. Oh yeah,
so they
here I'm skimming ahead of you. It says increases the maximum throughput by 2x to 20 gig of read.
so they've doubled the network throughput on this storage product, which is helpful for those high I/O or high file size intensive reads kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny, EFS is kind of one of those things again that we end up using it a lot, right? For
Yeah,
workloads with a fleet of well, in this case, primarily Linux type machines, right?
yeah,
Um, you just
like a healing
yeah,
web application type situation. Yeah,
yeah, it's fantastic just to be able to get more throughput. I do notice here at the bottom, immediately available for EFS running in specific regions. This would be something
yeah,
I guess that would roll out over time to all the other regions. But if you're running in Virginia, Ohio, Oregon, and then a couple regions outside of North America, you can use this
yeah.
right away.
Tokyo, Dublin.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so they're rolling this out first in the larger data centers. It looks like, and then
yeah, that makes sense. One thing here is, yeah, I'm in vacation mode today. As I said, one thing I was thinking of a question, and as I was setting up the question, I forgot what the question was. So maybe this will go into the same bucket as the other sort of non. Oh, I remember. Okay, I'm gonna save. Isn't that weird? I'm gonna save the thing
that's
before
hilarious.
we get to the outro. We'll save it as
Okay,
the other fun fact here before we
great.
wrap up the show. All right, that's so weird. Okay, so here we go. Anthropic Claude 3. This one's the Haiku model. So this was released, but they also
Oh yes,
released what was the other one that popped up just last week? There was another
another
Claude
model
model.
release.
Yeah, wasn't it?
They did. They was a huge. They released three big models.
Yeah, there was Mistral, and
Oh yeah,
then
Mistral did it.
yeah,
Released
which
Opus for cloud, I think.
that's what it was. So that's also just a different family within Claude, right? Opus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their flagship, largest model that
Okay.
they're offering now.
Okay. Perfect. So, I haven't tried this, but we've got a slide a little later on that talks about all of the different Claude models. But I know when they mentioned this was just yesterday that it was released.
Mm,
I know there were quite a few people chatting about this, that they were excited to give it a whirl and see what it could do. I guess I don't want to misspeak from the next one of the next tabs here, but I think this one is like is it a smaller model
Yeah,
than the other ones that got this family, but it's really, really fast.
right.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So this is kind of the more trimmed down version, which
So, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say this stuff is progressing so quickly. There's so many news items for specifically Gen AI over the past 2 weeks to look at. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so like I don't really have much to say about this other than yay, here's another model you can try out. And I've been playing with Claude for
yeah,
when they did the first announcement of the change, right?
Mm.
Whatever the other model was that they released. And I was like, I'm going to give this a whirl. So I signed up, and I haven't done anything too fancy with it. I think I was telling you, I just
right.
fired it up in the playground, right?
Yeah,
What did they call it? The access request took a day, got that. And then I've been feeding it different things. And my
Mhm.
immediate reaction was how insanely fast it was.
Yeah,
Compared to sort of some of the things that I had been doing before. Uh, I was amazed, just lightning speed. So,
yeah. The performance is really good
yeah,
on these new models. Yeah,
like you said, it's amazing to see just how much has happened in the last couple of weeks. So what's going to happen in the next 6 months, 8 months? It's going to be fun to watch.
it's March. It's
Yeah,
only March, right?
it's only
And
March. Yeah, yeah. I think
yeah,
this is just floodgates are going to open on this kind of stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another one. I have not tried this one. Mistral AI, made up of two different models. So there's I don't know
Mhm.
if there's a fancy way to say this, but 7B and 8X 7B
Yeah,
available now as well. I think I made a request in our demo account to also add this one
good access.
to
Yeah.
just to, in the playground to start messing around with it. Have you had any experience with this one? Have you done any reading about this one? Like
It
why do
comes
I
up
care
in
about this
the
one?
it comes up in the benchmarks. It's open source and it has what people are suspecting is a similar structure to GPT-4, like a mixture of experts model. So people are
Yeah, okay.
speculating that's what makes GPT-4 as good as it is, and it's on the same level as that, close enough on a lot of benchmarks.
Okay. So just another tool in your tool belt. And really what this comes down to is
Yep,
experimenting to find the right model for what you're trying to accomplish.
pretty much, yeah. Like, if you need something that is open source, you would probably go for
Yeah,
Mistral,
okay.
one of their
Yeah,
models.
however you say it. I don't know. In my brain, I always want to say mistrial, and I know that's not right. That would be a bad name for your product, I would think.
Yeah,
But
you don't want that one.
yeah, my brain just
Yeah.
automatically goes right there for some reason. So lots of new models that you can get access to on Bedrock to try out.
Yeah.
I was using Claude back here again, right? And I ran a bunch of, I sort of was experimenting with this idea of setting the context, like
Okay.
telling,
Yep.
you're a sales and marketing expert, you're this, you're that, and
Sure.
running different things through it. And I was even just doing simple things like, hey, you're a web designer or something like that with
Oh,
deep
yeah.
knowledge of SEO, how using, analyze this page and provide back suggestions on ways that you could improve the click-through rate on organic search engine results. I was actually kind of like, it gave me like multiple suggestions on maybe the page
Oh, yeah.
description, different title structure, and a bunch of other things. And I'm like, wow, it was pretty, pretty impressive to see what it could do. And I don't even know if like on the prompt side, if I'm really using effective prompts.
Like, yeah.
I'm just kind of playing around, right? And
Yeah,
when I said, "Oh, go ahead,"
the base power that you have with this type of stuff just to generate content, text, code, whatever is staggering.
and when I said effective, I immediately thought of another movie reference since that seems to be the theme today. Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
still an effective partnership? I think that's what it is, or effective team. You know that what's that movie? Tom Cruise fly around on the planet. There's like drones. Remember it?
Mm,
No.
no, I don't think I'm familiar. Yeah.
I can't. It'll pop into my head eventually. This one here, I'm going to let you run on this one because I'm not quite sure. I completely understand. Knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock now support hybrid
Okay.
search.
Yes, this is for retrieval augmented generation applications. Normally, so it's just the type of search you can use now
Okay.
has been updated.
Okay.
So you usually use vectors. Hybrid search combines semantic search with text-based search to improve the relevance of retrieve results for keyword searches. Okay, so you can add text search to your semantic search now, is what it
Okay.
reads to me.
And I'm looking at the second to last sentence there before where they tell us where it's available. It says, select hybrid search as your preferred search option with knowledge bases, or choose the default search option where AWS will intelligently determine the best search methods to use for your data.
Yeah, so the idea here is retrieval augmented generation usually uses uh, semantic vectors to search just a pile of text, is what it's saying here.
Okay.
So you get those out of a model, it'll generate the vectors, and that to capture meaning within data and answer human-like questions. But now you can augment that with natural language.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
another example of just how quickly this is evolving, right? Okay, good. So that's the AWS interesting news updates over the
Mm.
last week or so. Let's change gears and talk a little bit more about some Gen AI news that we've stumbled across. And this is the
And
one
oh
that I
boy.
added because of, do you say Claude? Do you say Claude? Like, how are you supposed to say this? Claude?
Well, it's French, right? Like I think it would be Claude.
Claude? Okay, I'll change the way I
Claude,
say
yeah.
Claude. It doesn't sound as nice as Claude. All right, so what we're doing here is talking about this, well, basically family of models, which we've talked about already. We've got
Yeah.
Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus, and you can kind of see this is the picture that I had in my head when we were
Mm.
talking. I know you can't see it; you're a little behind me, but this was this little diagram of different models in the family, and you've got
Yeah.
Haiku as sort of the lowest, sounds bad, like the lowest intelligence, but
Right.
also the lowest cost, all the way up to Opus, where you're getting more cost, but more intelligence. So I've just thought this was interesting in the fact that, and we got these models released in very quick succession, at least on the AWS platform with Bedrock over the
Mhm.
last week or two, right? Can you get all three of these now through Bedrock? Do you know?
And I'm not sure, honestly. I
Yeah,
think it would make sense if you could, but
yeah,
I'd have to check. But yeah, it's interesting to see kind of it's just a chart, right, of intelligence versus cost,
versus cost. Yeah,
and it's kind of a scaling, not quite linear scale at this point, but scaling pattern. The more you pay for compute, the more intelligence you get, and it's just a good visualization of that.
yeah, yeah. So then again, this comes back to having to do your experimentation and figure out, and now in this case, you've got different models to think about, and now we've got different families in a specific model. In this case, with Claude, you've got to think about like where on that spectrum again do you think is appropriate for what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think again that the thing that really got me with this is, this is the other. I'm scrolling down through. They're comparing the different models as part of Claude to some other
Mhm.
options that you have out there, and they were showing you sort of the differences. I guess I'll call it quality between them. So
Yeah.
undergraduate, graduate level, math problem solving. I'm just looking at a couple of them. Code, and it outperforms, at least according to this diagram, it outperforms everything else that's out there, as far as I can tell.
Pretty much across every metric, it
Yeah.
seems like. I think there was a couple of metrics that GPT might have been, not according to this chart though.
Yeah. I thought that as I looked at this, I was like, wait, I thought it did miss, but I didn't think it performed quite as well on a couple things versus GPT-4. But according to this,
Yeah.
it outperforms it
Hai
everywhere.
Haiku doesn't, but Opus will outperform
Yeah.
pretty much everything. And I think that's probably just a function of you're using a lot more compute, right?
Yeah.
For your question.
It's funny as we sit here, I mentioned already that I've been using
Mm.
Bedrock Playground just to ask these quick questions more as a way to kind of try to familiarize myself with it. Because I would suspect as much as we talk about Gen AI on the show here,
Yeah.
at least in real life, we don't really have a lot of customers saying, at this point, how do I use this? How do I use that? Just some general information sort of like questions, but
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really sort of thinking about how to apply this at least in our life. I don't know, in our space.
Yeah. Not in our customer base anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, like I'm playing around with it. I don't actually know which family or which model within Claude I'm actually using. I gave you those examples where I was like
Mm.
trying to play around with prompts and, set context and stuff. I don't even know. Can I pull it up really quickly here? And I don't even know which one I'm
I would
using.
I would bet you it's Haiku, but
Yeah, let me see here. You can listen to me type for a second.
oh boy.
Yeah, that's always exciting. I was going to say exciting radio. Like we're all fancy like. Let's see here. Get started, Bedrock. Open
Yeah, I know at least
playground.
Haiku is available right now.
Okay, so when I go into Bedrock and when I
Mhm.
go into, I select Claude and then I go into the chat playground and open it up, it looks like it's defaulting to Sonnet, so right in the middle.
Okay.
So I guess I've been using Sonnet then, because up until we started talking about it today, I hadn't even really given it any thought because I just wanted to see what it would do. So
Right. Yeah.
earlier, a couple tabs ago, when I said one of the things that really struck me was the speed, I'm not even using the fastest one then, in theory.
No, you're not. Yeah, you're using middle of the road. It's still better than pretty much anything out there on most tasks.
Yeah. So we're not
Uh,
cooking with gas at this point. We're just kind of,
right.
yeah. I'll have to try it. See what it does.
Is the Opus available? Are you able to like click
Let me
it?
see. Change. I wonder if I have to sign up for something.
You
Change.
might have to.
Oh, Opus isn't available, so I don't have access to
Okay.
Haiku. So I guess Sonnet at this point is the
The
best
generally available.
one that I could get. So you've got the other versions of Claude that were around before, but yeah, I didn't
Gotcha.
even. Isn't that funny? I didn't even think of it. I was so amazed at the speed of the thing. I was just like, I don't really
Yeah.
care. Let's just ask him another question. See what it tells me now, right? So I thought that was neat. And then if I scroll down a little bit, like we won't go through. This is a pretty long blog post. I'll put this
Yeah,
in.
no.
I'll put this in the newsletter. So if you're interested in really kind of diving into this, you can have
Take
a
a
look
deeper
at.
look.
Yeah, but like the next slide, the next part down is near instant results, and I can tell you
Yeah.
just from my fiddling around, this thing it's real time. Like I hit enter and I get an answer. Oh, pretty amazing. All right.
Yeah.
The next tab on our list is Figure AI.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is
So walk
this is
me through this one. Is this related to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Jeff Bezos and a couple other people investing in something.
yes.
Is that what this is?
This is that company. This is that company.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they developed a humanoid robot model or platform basically that is controlled by neural net technology in kind of real time so it looks like it's able to do extremely dexterity require like the dexterity requirements of these tasks are pretty high. Like it's loading a Keurig right now. It's moving a box onto
I have a hard time loading a Keurig.
yeah.
And
It's not a good day.
I'm jealous
too.
of this thing. It's just like click. I'm
Just
like,
does it.
okay,
Yeah.
I think at some point there may be something been modified in their version of that Keurig, because that lid goes down way harder than what
Mhm.
mine does or way easier than what mine does in the morning. Like when I don't have enough caffeine in my, I have a problem with that. So it's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you don't have a mechanized arm.
Yeah, so I'm
Do
just
it
going,
right there.
hold
That's-
on, boring human power trying to push that thing down. Yeah, so maybe maybe what are you telling me, that I'm not very strong? I don't have enough muscle to close I got to use two hands to close the Keurig thing in the morning. And so yeah.
Listen, sometimes it needs a little percussive
Oh, that's
assistance.
fantastic. So, what do you like? Yeah, like okay, so
So
go ahead. I have a question about this, but go ahead.
one thing about robotics that I've seen over the years is you never trust the demo, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Never,
and you
because
took you
never,
took my question away from me because I was kind of
yeah,
going to say, okay, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but there was another sort of humanoid robot that it just didn't go very well, and people sort of
yeah,
there was a lot of flack for it. So I'm watching these videos and I'm like, wow, this is cool. Is it real?
yeah. Like
Right?
there's no guy off to the side that we can see who's controlling it with some gloves or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if this is what they say it is, which is a neural net powered controller for a robot, so it's probably controlling the reward functions, that kind of thing, um, to get the machine to do the actions, the tasks.
Yep.
If it is what it is, and they can update that, then wow, maybe it won't be 5 years until some of these warehousing jobs or manufacturing jobs or retail or whatever get replaced, right? Like this is kind of staggering.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just going to accelerate. And this goes back again. I keep pulling from a couple weeks ago. We talked about Gen AI as what was the article? Corporate Ozempic, like same sort of
Yeah.
thing, right? And actually, that's a
Mhm.
good segue into. I'm just watching this
Yeah.
video and I'm shocked. That's a really great segue into Devin, our first AI software engineer. And I read through this. I'm going to let you talk about this
Yeah.
one. I just want to scroll down through the article though, and of course I can never find it. At some point, I'll figure out how to generate some highlights in these things so I can find them quickly. Somewhere, I'm pretty sure it's this in this article, but the
Mhm.
comment is kind of like, "Well, Devin is your 24/7 engineer who never is tired," and I'm
Right.
like, "Yeah, this kind of goes back to that the previous one about the robot. There is like." It's cost effective. It's never tired. Just does its job and stuff like that. So uh, that's the thing that struck me with Devin here. But walk us through this because
Yeah.
I know this is one that you kind of stumbled across. So talk about this one for us.
Yeah. So essentially what they've done is they've taken the idea of a large language model powered agent and built an environment for one that it contains a shell, an IDE, like a code editor, and an internet browser, pretty much. And what you do is you point it to a task or an issue that you want it to work on or solve, and goes away and it figures out a plan to deal with that and tries to resolve it. Which is, yeah, that it's automated development, right? There's a few caveats
Yeah, yeah,
with this
there
kind of
always
stuff, right?
yeah, always are. What are the caveats? What are you thinking?
So what I'm thinking is a lot of if you look at the testing that they did for this, a lot of this article is pretty much written for VCs, right?
Okay.
Like this whole press release was designed to attract VC money. Um, it's pretty clear. So, but the other thing is the selection of questions that they used to train this on or demo it on were like open PRs that were not super complicated to solve, but for like maybe write a test for this thing or debug this issue in the code or whatever. So in terms of what it can actually do, like the
Yeah. Yep.
skill ceiling, it's it's nowhere near like a seasoned developer basically for complex tasks. But if you have something that can go in and fix your fiddly little PRs for your tests and whatnot, that's still a useful thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
that's
think
kind
so.
of my takeaway from this.
Yeah. I think there's some aspects of this. I think at some point we all have to discuss as a group to decide what we think it should do. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
Devin, I'm just saying in general. Like I scrolled down through the page as you were talking, and we even tried giving Devin real jobs on Upwork. Devin
Yeah.
goes off and writes and debugs code that has a side hustle. Like okay,
Yeah.
and then yeah, like I kind of scrolled through and I found the little thing. I was paraphrasing a bit, but right in the second paragraph, Devin is a tireless, skilled teammate, equally ready to build alongside you or independently complete tasks.
Right.
So, yeah,
So
it's
you could assign it some PRs to work on or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah,
The thing with the Upwork, it sounds impressive, right? But
yeah.
they
I
don't
didn't
really
watch the
say
video.
Yeah, they don't really go into detail on what the Upwork tasks were, so,
Okay.
they get to go and pick those.
Well, yeah, like you said, this
Yeah.
article is written in a for a very specific audience. I think it's an
Yes.
interesting thing to consider and think about and talk about. Um, in real life, what would this actually do?
Right.
Still to be seen, I guess, right, or to be determined.
Like, I could see you wanna point it at your repo and give it a slew of, write some tests for this, or go and, check these issues and see if there's something you can fix, right? And they can do that overnight while
Yeah,
while you're sleeping, and then you come back in the morning and you can review the PRs. So
yeah, because we are not,
there's something.
we still require sleep at this point.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, unlike the robots in the previous tab and Devin here, who tirelessly will work while we are napping.
Yeah. And, despite like if the skill ceiling is set at a particular level right now, but that will improve incrementally, right? I think they do a demo where it trains another model to do something.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's just Googling the API basically and spitting that into a CLI, but it's doing it. So
Oh, I found the one here. Devin can train and fine tune its own AI models.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I would
yeah,
bet it performs really well on repos with a really good README and a well-defined API, and you would have no problem with
yeah.
it there.
Still pretty cool. Pretty cool
Still
stuff.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got one last tab here. This is again. I don't know how you say this. Sima,
Sima?
Sima. I have no idea. A generalist AI agent for 3D virtual environments
So
and cool stuff.
yeah. So really, you're not safe in the physical world. You're not safe in the digital world because Google, they've developed a general purpose agent, Google DeepMind, to play any kind of 3D, act in any kind of 3D space, like a video game, for example, and learn the rules of the world and what actions it can take.
Yeah.
And this ties directly back to that article we talked about, where they were simulating robot reward functions, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
control reward functions.
Yeah.
What this is doing is it's taking pixel input from a monitor essentially, and then it's feeding back keyboard and mouse output. So directly controlling a computer input and acting in the world to accomplish the task that you give it.
Yeah. So this is like essentially, I have two immediate thoughts.
Yeah.
This is essentially a bot that used to kick our butts in like a Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
But just a really
Yeah.
smart one now versus the one that kind
Basically,
of was programmed just to run a route over and over again. And if you happen to run
right.
into it, it's a much better aimer than you are.
Yeah, except it's a general purpose bot that you could also get to play whatever game you want.
Yeah. So
Right? Whatever FPS.
yeah, the second thing that immediately came to my mind as I was flipping through this
Yeah.
article and reading it, and I don't know if you can see what I'm looking at, but I kind of scrolled down a little bit to where it's giving you the 4 screenshots. And on the very
Oh
far
yeah.
left of this screenshot, I'm like 100% that that's Valhalla, right? Or what's that game we were just talking about? The Viking game.
It's either Valheim,
Valheim.
or Rust or something.
Yeah.
It
I'm
looks like
hoping it's Valheim, and here's why. We have to figure out how we can actually use this, and we can put it on Frank's server and just really mess with them. Like, obviously, I have no idea if you can actually do that. But, just the conversation we had like a week ago about how much of this, is it called Valheim? How much Valheim is being played. I think it'd be fantastic. No, that's us playing. That's me on your server.
No, we're on 24/7. We take shifts.
Yeah. We just working as a team. We're an effective team.
That's right.
We're an effective team. All right.
Is that like Minority Report or something?
Oh, it's like it's
Okay.
this one where the Earth, like there's nothing left on the Earth, and uh what's his name now? I already forget. Tom Cruise, thank you, and his teammate, they're like in sort of like an orbital thing above the planet, and they go off and there's drones that are going around the planet. And he goes down and fixes the drones and stuff like that. And of course it all goes sideways. And at some point there's a line like, "Are you still an effective team?" or something like that. So now every time I don't know, I can't help myself. So yeah, I thought this was insane. Like I flipped through this and I was looking at it's playing No Man's Sky. There's Valheim. I scrolled down. Of course, Goat Simulator. Like,
Of course,
you,
Goat
you,
Simulator.
you
Yep.
got to figure out how to play Goat Simulator. But yeah, like I think to your point, like
So
it's basically
competitive.
taking
Yeah,
the what it sees on the screen, like you said, and feeding keyboard and
Yep,
mouse input.
that's right. Yeah. So any online game is like, I don't know how you're going to detect this stuff. Um, they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's like so you're
uh,
thinking in like the MMOs and stuff like that, right? The online game,
MMOs,
yeah.
shooters, any kind of ranked competitive esports situation,
Yeah.
um, it's going to be tricky to find these kinds of agents because it'll look like um, regular mouse and keyboard data. So they'll have to do some kind of machine learning analysis on the actual inputs to see if there's a signature that you can detect.
Yeah.
Usually
So
these agents have some.
you're gonna need an agent to detect an agent.
That's where we're going. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to need some kind of system that's keyed into statistically determining whether your inputs were machine or not, which is kind of how they do it already a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But they'll have to key into this kind of system in particular.
It's gonna be it's an amazing problem to think about. Like, how do you tell that it's an agent
Mhm.
or my nephew? Because
Right.
like holy hell, like I'm pretty sure he has to be an agent then, because the way he kicked my ass in all these games,
Right. Yeah.
it's he's got to be
It's
it's
the
an
only
AI bot.
explanation.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
to be the only explanation,
Must
right?
be.
Yeah, I think this is really cool stuff. Yeah,
And it's
it'd
not
be
limited
interesting
to
to see where it
games,
goes.
right?
Well, no,
It's not
like
limited to game. It's anything you do on a computer, essentially.
because it's just picking the pixels up off the monitor and
Yeah.
feeding back through the
Responding
regular
to it. Yeah.
interface that we would use. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty neat. Yeah, so it says here, like, where was it? I thought it said something. Oh, the other thing that stuck out to me, it doesn't need, oh, this might be what we just talked about. It doesn't need access to source code. It doesn't need
Mhm.
access to APIs. It's simply monitoring the screens using simple natural language processing to provide inputs back through keyboard and
Yep.
mouse. Yeah. I did think it was kind of funny. They've got a few little samples at the bottom. So they're playing Goat Simulator and driving the car. I don't know if I'd wanted to drive my car at this point, but hey, and it does take it a few attempts to jump the fence there, and watching a
Yeah.
goat like shimmy back left and right like a crab is slightly unsettling. Welcome to the future. I think this is what we're going to be
Yeah.
dealing with is odd stuff. But anyways,
Like,
yeah,
yeah. Like it's not perfect at all by any means,
yeah.
but it plays the games.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I do see a real practical um, use case for this right away. Is
Mm.
I really enjoy No Man's Sky, but
Yep.
there could be some time where I would rather do something else, but just still accumulate wealth in No Man's Sky. So I could just play No Man's
Okay.
Sky for me, right? Just wander away and do something real with my time and come back and hopefully I'm rich.
Let the machine collect
Yeah.
your resources for you.
Resources and snap pictures of plant material on every planet that it can find. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's the show. Before we get to the outro, though, I remembered the one other thing, and there's no real context for this whatsoever. Actually, there is. We could apply it to this last slide. I think I've told you before. There was, and I don't want to say a name of any particular video game, but there was a space video game that me and my friends played almost nonstop for a very large portion of time, to the point where I was like, I have to just step away from this thing because it's consuming. When it starts working its way into your subconscious, where you like mistakenly refer to real life currency using a game's currency,
That's a problem.
yeah, you got to find something else to do with your time. So the other day, I'm on my phone and I get a text and it's one of the guys I played with, and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, my son and I, he's old enough now. He's been asking me about this game that we used to play all the time, because I guess he would tell him stories about all these crazy games, stuff, right? And he's like, so he wanted to try it out. So I'm back in game. Do you want to join us?" And I just very slowly put my phone down and backed away from the desk. But you could use this to fly your spaceships.
You sure could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And skill up my character and stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like you'll have all these grinding bots, gold
Yeah,
farming in
yeah,
WoW and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
still a thing.
So I can play my favorite space game of all time without actually playing my space game.
You could you could feed your gaming performance input into a machine and have an agent that plays like you.
Uh,
Probably at some point.
yeah, I watched a, you know what, I watched a, and I think you and I talked about this earlier in the week, and I want to figure this out, how to do
Yeah.
this. I watched a video of somebody very well
Mhm.
known in the AI space, worked at AWS for a long time. Her name is Ali. I should remember Ali's last name. Uh, I followed her on Twitter for a long time, follow her on LinkedIn now, and she did a really great webinar. And she didn't get into like details of how they did this, but she essentially was saying exactly what you said. Like we fed in a bunch of our content. So we
Yeah.
knew all of that content was, again, I'm forgetting context, but just because I mentioned Ali, let's say it's Ali, right? So Ali took a bunch of the content that she's written, fed it into a GPT, custom
Yep.
GPT that they had
Some
made.
kind of
Yeah.
yep.
And what she said is they can then have that agent write like it's Ali. Now,
Yeah.
they'll still go off and edit the content, tighten it up, and, you know, turn it into what they actually want to do. But this, you made me think of it when you said, I could feed my gameplay into it and it would play the game like I would, which would essentially basically make less gameplay and more time making spreadsheets about how to make money in the
How
game.
to automate your gameplay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
more than anything. So
I
yeah,
think
but
the
interesting
main
stuff.
goal of that's the main goal of the game you were talking about, EVE Online, right? Anyways, is
Yeah.
to make spreadsheets. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
I
perfect.
we used to call it great game if you're into space games and stuff. I will not start playing it again. However, if you're into sitting around in space, mining asteroids, fake asteroids, while
Mm.
chatting with your friends that you've probably never met in real life and probably never will, while you're working on spreadsheets, it's a fantastically fun game. Yeah, it's basically a really expensive chat client with Google Sheets included.
Perfect.
Fun stuff. So with that note, we'll call it a day. That
All
is
right.
all of the latest AWS news that we thought was fit to talk about, as well as some Gen AI stuff. So we'll be back next week. Tuesday night, we'll be back live on Twitch to do some type of programming. I don't know if I'm going to go back to Amazon Q or not, or maybe what we'll try to do is start playing around with some API calls to Bedrock or something like that, just because I'm playing in the playground so much. Maybe we'll try that, but we'll be back on Tuesday night. And oh, one last thing, shameless self plug. You know what I'm trying to say. If you want
Yep.
to get news in your inbox every Monday morning, we do have a weekly newsletter. It's called Orbit Weekly. You can find it on the website. So just head over to CuriousOrbit.com. You can sign up there, and you'll get this kind of fun, entertaining content in your inbox. What could go wrong? Bye for
That's
now,
right.
everybody.
All right. Take care.